Welcome back to another Directorial Disputes, the podcast where we give our unpopular film opinions and battle it out to decide whether they're deserving of their unpopular label. I'm James.
I'm Josh.
We're back again. We're back again after our stalemate last week. A stalemate of an episode. Our first ever stalemate.
Yeah.
Which certainly makes for an interesting scoreboard. 6-6 we're at, and so everything
6-6?
6-6?
I mean, I'll take it.
3-3.
That's better.
3-3. Everything to play for. Everything to play for this week. And it's actually another unpopular opinion coming from me. And this is a tough one. You've just got a lot of
trash opinions.
Well, that is just outrageous.
No, I joke because I, up until very recently, completely and utterly agreed with you on this. So,
which is why you've got to take everything you say with a pinch of salt, because you just admitted that I'm right.
No. I was saying that I was wrong.
This is actually a contentious episode because we weren't sure which one of us was unpopular here. But I'm taking the reins and owning my unpopularity with this opinion. And the opinion is that Avatar is a bad movie. And I'm not talking about little airy boy. I'm talking about big blue people. Big Blue People is a bad movie.
I love Monsters, Inc. How dare you?
If only it was Monsters, Inc. Because that's actually a pretty good movie.
That's an amazing film. Yeah.
Much rather watch that than this.
Oh.
So what do you have to say, eh? What do you have to say?
Well, like I said, I've actually worked out the exact date my opinion changed. Right, I've got it because I saw this film in 2010. Right, I rented it from Blockbuster.
Oh Lord,
that dates it, right? I remember sat in my living room with my mum and dad watching this film, and I remember it gave me nightmares. That's how young, and I hated it. I have this image burnt into my brain because when I was a kid, CGI people would freak me out, like because that's around the time the Planet of the Apes movies came out as well. I think a bit later after that, didn't they?
Yeah,
freaked me out, and I from that moment I tainted it with I was like no.
God.
I hate this film. So I didn't really watch it properly.
10-year-old Josh was just so right.
No. And I know what you mean. I know where you're coming from. But on the 24th of September, 2022, I saw this film in IMAX 3D, and that completely changed.
God. It's a shame. I mean, you know what? Fair play for getting it from Blockbuster originally. It was just a shame that this film didn't die and Blockbuster did.
There's one store still open.
Either way, no. It's my time. I am once again treated with my period of time uninterrupted. He's muted his mic. I get to tell you why Avatar is a terrible movie. And you know what? It's not going to be a long one today. It's not going to be a long rant because this is a very simple point. And I'm gonna start with unobtainium, and that is the crux of this. That is the crux of this. You know what? I'm not going to say Avatar is a terribly made movie. I'm not going to say Avatar is an ugly movie. I'm not going to say Avatar doesn't have lovely music. I'm going to say Avatar is so poorly written. I think Josh at 10 could have written better. 10-year-old Josh could have written better. Unobtainium. And a testament to how bad this movie is, and I will ask Josh again once I've had my period of time, is this mess of a film that is so on the nose, it is painful. What are the name of the characters? And that's as far as I need to go. This film is terrible. It is terrible. It is boring, unexciting. It is on the nose and bland. It is very impressive technically. The score is lovely. In terms of cinematic evolution, this film did a lot. But for story writing, my lord, I think we got set back. With the mess that is this film. And that's all I had to say. I told you it wouldn't be a rant. There's very, very few things I need to say about this to prove my point.
I mean, your point is, again, something that I, up until very recently, agreed with. I saw that film, was like, never going to watch it again at the age of 10. And then when was that? A couple of years ago.
Just so you know, I'm on high alert this episode for you to say one word.
Ooh, what word?
And I will scream.
Is it gonna be?
No, I'm just waiting.
E, by any chance?
I'm just waiting. For you to say this.
Okay. So Yeah, that was maybe 2 years ago. One of the people I was living with at the time, he took a film module on his uni course, and one of the films, because it's something that I missed out on when I did my film course, so I sat in. I basically, because everything, we were locked down, all of his stuff was online. I sat in on
You
his
bootlegged a
lectures.
course. It's okay.
I'd already taken it.
You
But,
pirated
you
a
know,
uni lecture.
you would you wouldn't download it. You wouldn't download
You
a
wouldn't
uni
download a
course.
lecture.
Uh, uh, um, and one of the films that was on the module was Avatar, and even then I was like, nah. And he skipped it as well. He's like, it was one of them films at the time. I was like, you've seen it once. There's nothing much to it. And yeah, the script not amazing. I can say that. Unobtainium, exactly right. It's hilariously bad. However, I feel like there's a QI klaxon that's going to go off if I say a particular
Oh,
word.
I'm rubbing my hands together.
You could sum this up. To me, this completely sums up the cinematic experience.
Experience!
It is!
It's an experience.
Yes.
The film is an experience, and get out with that terrible opinion.
But right, I know what you mean, and I would have agreed with you, but I can't explain to you fully how that affects on it, right? Because I now own Avatar on Blu-ray. Am I ever gonna watch it? Probably not. But sat in that cinema
And do you know what?
with
No, what? End the podcast there. End the podcast there. You have paid money. No. We can end this week's episode here, and I will take the win. You literally just said you spent good money, hard-earned money, on a film you're not going to watch. And you know why you're not going to watch it? Because it's boring, bland, and terribly written.
it's not incredibly well written. I'll half
That is
give you
the
that.
that is
rest
the
of it, though,
equivalent.
no.
No. That is the equivalent of keeping your ticket to an aquarium to look at every time and any time, every now and again, because you had a lovely experience while you were there.
I'm sorry, I don't agree anymore. I used to, right? I mean, I'm not gonna go, oh, you know what? I'm gonna watch Avatar for the bit where they shove their ponytails into each other, because that is weird. And you can see why it's cut. But this film does a lot that, it might well be a one and done. For you, you've watched it more than you ever wanted to. And for this part of the podcast, because obviously, audio format, I'm gonna put on my limited edition 2009 Avatar LCD watch
Oh my lord, it's vile.
that I found in the back of a drawer.
You think you've just evolved. You've actually devolved.
I don't know where I got this from.
Lord. For those listening, he's put on a vile watch from
I'll
a
be honest,
vile
if you
movie.
Google it, it doesn't actually come up in the Google results, but it does come up on eBay for £8.
And right now, yeah, so you know what, get yourself one. If you want to look like a budget Ben 10 like Josh does.
Oh, it does actually change. Hang on, it does actually. If I press the button enough, it changes color.
Oh my god, he's transforming into a poorly written character with no depth. Oh my god, he's just big
No,
and
I'm just
blue
like that
now.
anyway. I'm just like that. Anyway. I can't change it back from being purple. All right, it's just gonna have to be purple. It's Avatar purple now. All right, so yes, the dialogue in this film not amazing. I'll give you that. I don't think that could be argued. Unobtainium, not great. I've seen people argue that the reason it's called unobtainium is because the very wealthy man who's running the operation, which you said you don't remember any of the characters' names. It's
now look me in the eye and tell me you didn't just look up the names.
I didn't.
No. Look me in the eye and tell me you did
Oh
not
wait,
just
hang on,
look
my
up the
camera's up
characters'
here. I
names.
didn't. I swear.
Yes, you
I
did.
didn't.
You did. You're a big fat liar because do you know what? Not a single person knows any of those characters. Do you know what they know them as? The big blue people. The Avatar people. I don't even know if they're called the Avatar. What are they called?
The Navi.
The Na'vi. Well, you know what? They're called the Avatars. On multiple occasions I've heard people go, oh, you know when they become the Avatar? No, they don't become an all-powerful fire, earth, air and water bender. They become big blue people. And the film is an experience, everyone wants to tell you. Everyone who loves this film says, oh, it's an experience. It's not an experience. It's not. I feel like the issue with Avatar is people saw it 10 years ago, 12 years ago now, Well, it came out in 2008, right?
2009.
2009. So we're talking 13 years ago. I saw this film 13 years ago, and at that time, it was a technological marvel. 3D like you've never seen it before. Everyone rushed and got their terrible 3D TVs that aren't supported anymore. And got their glasses out. Josh is ceremoniously wearing his 3D TV glasses. And they didn't watch it ever since. No one has watched the film since.
I just don't think that's true, though. I know for a fact that's not true. Because, I mean, I'm jumping ahead for one of my points here. But now that it's owned by Disney, you have a whole section of Disney World dedicated to Avatar now. And the fact that you're saying, like, no one watched it, no one cares.
And I'll put to you this. Do we think Disney... Well, I'll give you some options here. Do we think, A, Disney made that part of Disneyland into Avatar because everyone loved Avatar so much?
Right.
Or do we, B, think that they made that area of Avatar because they're aware that they've got 4 other films that they've got to release in the hope that people buy them and to try and drive hype and just honestly, not even hype, just to remind people that the Avatar franchise exists?
There's a video on YouTube for the people listening I would definitely recommend. It's called An Excruciating Deep Dive into the Avatar Theme Park by Jenny Nicholson, right? I'm a big fan of her content anyway, but she talks about the area of Disney World dedicated to Avatar.
Sure.
And she perfectly sums up the lack of cultural impact that Avatar had, because apparently, I can't remember whereabouts in the park she was, but she overheard a kid go to her dad, "Wow, they made a movie of this?" And
look,
I
you're
get
proving my point.
Right, no, I'm tackling your point. I understand that this film doesn't really have the impact, arguably, that it should, is what I'm getting at. Because Fox really... I'm going to skip ahead. I wrote some stuff down here. So, the top franchises around that sort of time, you had like Pirates of the Caribbean, you had Marvel starting out, you had the Batman films as well, all doing amazing. And then this film comes out. It's original. It's not based on comic books. It's not based on a pre-existing franchise. You're giving me a strange look. What?
The film is original.
In that it's not based on any source material. You're about to say that the narrative isn't very original, but I'll look back to that.
Absolutely.
It's not based on anything. It comes out of nowhere, and it completely takes the world by storm for all of a month, and then it goes away. Fox did nothing with it, and I think that's on Fox, not on the franchise.
Didn't they make a terrible video game?
They made several video games that came out around the time the film came out. Some of them were good, some of them were bad. But that's always the way with tie-in video games, especially around that. But the fact that Fox did nothing with it, I think they could have. Now Disney owned it. If Disney owned this franchise from the get-go, like they do now, could you imagine the amount of... There's Avatar Lego now. Could you imagine back then, we got Lego Avatar the game?
Josh,
that'd have been amazing.
We've gotten into dangerous territory here, because I cannot have you preaching Disney at me.
I know you of all people, especially.
Yeah,
but
of all people.
What I'm saying is, you're
saying
that this film has no impact, and I'm saying it's not the film's fault.
Josh, I don't care. It is the film's fault. That is a silly argument. This is a film. This is a film that was the highest grossing film of all time for a decade.
Yeah,
for a decade. Who talks about this film? Who talks about this film? This film has zero impact. And it's because it's a pretty colour film that makes you go, ooh, like some fireworks. And then it's gone. It's gone. You see the explosion, you see the flashy colours, and it's gone because the story is puddle deep.
My defence to that. I've got a few different things. One of them being that it uses a very cliche... It's the Dances with Wolves, it's the Pocahontas, Last Samurai kind of white saviour-y... Let's be a part of... Issue. I know, that's a whole other thing. It uses that. It's a paint-by-numbers plot, yeah. But that's because this film spends the rest of the time world-building. And yes, the dialogue is not great. The plot itself is, again, we've seen it before. But it spends the time building that world, showing us what that world is like. You can't say that's not good, because there are people out there who got... diagnosed with depression because after coming out of this film. Not because the film is bad, like you're gonna say, but because they can't go there. And the closest thing they can do to that is go to Disney World, which is great for Disney now. But at the time, yeah, okay, sure, at the time it looks really impressive. Having seen this film a matter of months ago, it's still really impressive. And the sequel, which comes out the day this episode is released, looks even more amazing. And I know you're like that's not important. That's not helping. It is. There's a reason this film is the highest grossing film of all time.
To say that this film spent all of its time world building and therefore it should get a pass for its absolutely tragic storyline or attempt to write dialogue is outrageous. The world is impressive visually, absolutely great. It's filled with monsters that I don't care about, and it's filled with animals that I don't care about. Some of those animals have stolen sounds from Jurassic Park. They've just used the T-Rex sound from Jurassic Park for some of the animals, which is pathetic. But to say that it should get a pass on its terrible storytelling because it spends its time world building, I present to you Dune, and I know it's a film you don't like, but Dune is a film that encapsulated me in its world and had me so interested in its universe and surrounding that it got me to read a book thicker than my head. It got me, and do you know what? It's because the world building and the dialogue and storyline were so good together. Unlike Avatar.
I can't agree with you there, mainly because how you think of this film, I think of Dune. I think that film is slow, boring, bugger all happens, and it takes its time that much that they had to stick a part 1 on the front of the film just to be like, oh, it's fine. Whereas this film, you're going to be like, oh, maybe say it's similar in the sense of it's too long because it's like 3 hours long, but at least this is its own film. They didn't need to make any sequels. It could have capped off here.
No, I think
Dune is just boring.
Dune is a separate.
Just sand.
It might be it might be a separate episode. Who knows?
True.
But this film is a glorified tech demo. That's what Avatar is. It's a film that you go in, and you know what? For the time, the technology is incredible. Everything is in focus, which is insane, which allows you to get the scale of the world. You've got a tiny little helicopter flying through giant landscapes, which is impressive. You've got blue people that actually look real. For 2009, that's crazy. That is absolutely insane. Technologically, this film is brilliant. It is vibrant. It is beautiful. And I have no issue with that. I have no issue with that. But that's as far as the film's brilliance goes. We've got a film which is trying to be a deep metaphor for eco or environmentalism and colonialism. And you know what? It's not deep, but it takes itself so seriously that it thinks it's so clever that James Cameron is acting like a GCSE film student. My man has seen Frozen Planet and has gone, I'm so sad about the animals dying. I'm going to make this film and it's going to be so deep. How about we make the people blue and we make the forest purple and green? How about that? And what we'll do is we'll have a big American man with some terrible lines in this movie come in with his big robots and chop it all down and everyone think I'm really clever. And I think what happened, or at least I hope this is what happened, was that they looked at James Cameron's script and they went, that's terrible. Let's just push the money into how it looks and then people might buy it. And it worked. People bought it because you know what? It looks incredible. And that's where it ends.
Where you say that, like, nothing, like, it's shallow in that. And again, I can't argue that the script itself, or like the dialogue, is not good. Like, I can't argue with that. But where you say that, like, nothing else, like the world, like I say, the world building, they built essentially a full-on ecosystem for the planet. They made a whole new language, which is always impressive to do. That whole the planet of Pandora that they've made, they've come up with all the cultural stuff for it. They've come up with everything. They've built a planet, right? From the ground up in the sense of culturally. And again, it kind of seems like that's where the pre-production side was spent, and then they kind of got maybe like 2 weeks away from production and went, "Uh-oh, we need a script."
So I will stop you there. Obviously, you say that they've built this world.
Mm-hmm.
They did all that. Did they do that through storytelling or through visuals?
A bit of both. I know you're going to say it's only through visuals.
Did they do it through storytelling or by the pretty flashy colours?
I do feel like you're giving me an optician's exam at the minute. Yes, it could have been done better, but what I'm getting at here is that as your head hits the table and drops off the screen, that, yeah, okay, the narrative, the main narrative is weak, but everything underneath that, if you give it the time and actually experience it, then there is more there, and you're just not. I can tell you're just not gonna budge. I know you're not gonna budge, but
Not in the slightest. If this film didn't look as good as it was, this film would be in the same boat as the first Suicide Squad in how bad it is.
ooh, I wouldn't put it that far.
I think yourself, among others, are giving this film a pass because it looks so pretty and is so impressive. And do you know what? I will accept that it's very pretty and very impressive, but that does not make it a good film in any way. It makes it the complete opposite. And Avatar is a bad film. It is a bad movie. It is a movie with no depth. It's like looking at a sculpture where a robot has carved this sculpture, yeah? And the sculpture itself is very pretty, yeah? Very, very pretty. It's a very impressive sculpture. And do you know what? It's even more impressive because a robot has done it. But there's no substance to it. Are you aware of the arguments recently that an AI won a painting competition?
I did see that, yeah.
It's the same argument for Avatar, in that Avatar seems to be getting a pass because it's a very pretty painting. And don't get me wrong, the AI thing, the paintings are very pretty. But the issue people have is that there's no substance to them, and that's the thing here. It's a case that it feels like people are so busy looking visually at this film that they're not taking in all the other aspects that are key to making a film good, as it were.
I still don't. I just think this, the fact that you can't deny the fact that even if you've said that it's pretty thin on the ground narratively. But when the highest grossing film of all time, it's an anti-capitalist, pro-environmental film that isn't based on anything, that's impressive at least, right? Because even if people are just going there for the flashy colours and stuff, which I didn't, but if there are people out there who did, of course, they're coming away with that. And even if it is the equivalent of like a child going chopping down trees is bad, at least people are leaving. They might not have gone in with that mindset, and now they're leaving the film with that in their mind. I don't even know how to describe that face that you're pulling at me right now.
I don't think you can say that this film is clever enough or sophisticated enough to allow people to leave with that message. It might have
what
tried,
message do you think they're leaving with?
They're not. This is the thing. The film might have tried very hard to push that message in the most point-blank way. A way that literally writes environmental activist over its forehead and writes metaphor on its hat. But because of how weak these metaphors and this attempt at giving this message is, I think it just fails on that. I think people are leaving and going, yeah, that was a good movie. And then they never watch it again. They go, wow, that looked really good. When people talk about Avatar, what do they talk about? They talk about either the fact that it's the highest grossing movie of all time, and they talk about how impressive technologically and visually it is. What else do they talk? They don't talk about the fact that it's not an amazing example of environmental activism. They don't talk about the fact that it offers great commentary on colonialism. They talk about the fact that it's pretty big blue people in high definition, and oh my god, the 3D was amazing. So to say that Avatar is a good movie just doesn't stand. Avatar's a brilliant painting. Avatar is a lovely slideshow, but is it a good film? No, it isn't.
Would you agree it's a decent experience?
No, I'm not standing for the word experience. Not standing. I have for this episode in preparation. I watched and read a lot of reviews and reviews on Avatar from the time and now,
Yeah.
and a lot of reviews, even now, who try to shed Avatar in a positive light use the dreaded E word, and it just doesn't stand. Avatar isn't an experience. Avatar is trying to be a film, not an experience. And therefore you cannot brand it as an experience if that's not what it was trying to be. I think if there was intent for Avatar to be this experiential, technological and visual epiphany for people, then fair play. But with that, they wouldn't have had this terrible story. What Avatar was trying to be was this story about the environment, whilst also showing the technology that they have to make films now. And it just fails on the first part, so it just becomes a look at the things we can make films with, and that's where it ends. Which means it's not a good film; it's a brilliant tech demo.
I mean, not to bring in, theories and stuff. But so as much as saying that's not what the filmmaker's intent was, you know where I'm going with this.
Say it.
Bringing a bit of death of the author. Then if that's just how the rest of us take it, then it doesn't matter what the intent was.
I am a strong believer of death of the author to a certain degree, but I would be inclined to say here that it's not necessarily relevant to the fact that whether it was a good film or not. I'm saying you can get a positive experience out of Avatar, but just because you get that doesn't make it a good film. It doesn't show good filmmaking qualities. If Avatar was intended to be an experience, then I think there are certainly other ways they could do that. But it wasn't, and it just displays some terrible filmmaking. And so I cannot concede that Avatar is a good film, because if your argument is that it's a good experience, then sure, Avatar is a brilliant experience, but it is by no means a good film.
Well, I got you to say it's an experience, so I'm taking that as a win.
I will concede. I will concede that Avatar is an experience, but just because it's an experience does not mean it's a good film. I will stand here in front of you, the big man that I am, and I will say, Avatar is a good experience, but Avatar is a terrible film.
Strong words. I mean, I'm just looking through my notes, and you've kind of crossed them all off there. One of the few things that I've got is, you can hate this film as much as you want, but it did give us the best SNL sketch of all time, and that's Ryan Gosling having a meltdown because they used the papyrus font. But I'm gonna wrap up with my 3 final points. I can tell they're not really gonna change your opinion, although I'm going so far to end on a quote, and I think you might appreciate the quote at the very least. But first off, I think it shows what can be done with such a simple story. Yeah, it's paint by numbers and lacking in areas, but it allows the rest of the film, the effects, the art design, the visuals to take the forefront, which I guess adds to your point of it's an experience. Well, my point that you've finally conceded on, it's an experience. The 3D aspect genuinely adds to it and completely turned me around on it. I can't say I've ever felt so immersed in a film's world, and again, that makes sense if that's an experience, and not a film. But what I would personally say is, yeah, the plot is cliche. It's a rehash of like the white savior plot of Dances with Wolves, but I'd say the slim plot is worth it for the rest of it. And the quote that I have for that is, there's so much that the film does, you should be able to go, you know what, I'll take the extra 40 minutes that I didn't think that I didn't necessarily want to watch, because that right there is impressive, and that's from famous film scholar and podcast host Mr. James Davies talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think that perfectly sums up how I feel about this film, and I'll hand over to you to absolutely demolish what little standing I have.
I will start by commending you on your brilliant quote there from an absolute scholar of a critic, may we say, a trailblazer. But I will start by saying, and as I've said, I will concede that if you view Avatar as an experience, it is an incredible one. Certainly for its time, as we have said with other things such as 2001: A Space Odyssey. However, where a film like 2001: A Space Odyssey thrives and Avatar doesn't, making it more than an experience, it displays such filmmaking qualities as a interesting plot, memorable characters, and a plot device more inventive than unobtainium. And I think, finally, I will say that if this film is an experience, then you feel free to enjoy. Feel free to enjoy away, and come and tell me that Avatar is a good experience. But if you're going to come to me and tell me that Avatar is anything other than a bad film, then I'm going to have to disagree. I'm going to have to disagree, and I cannot move from this hill. I will die on this hill. I will die on this hill. And I will say, finally, that Avatar is a film that you can see once and never need to see again. It's a film you can look at once and you can marvel at it. And you can come out confidently and say, I don't need to see that again. And you can, if you wish, go as far as Josh, buy a copy, put it on your shelf, and have a look at it every now and again. But never put it on.
The box was pretty.
Just like the rest of the film. No substance to it, though, eh?
I think, because again, I totally and utterly agreed with everything that you said up until, as I say, September of this year. And the only difference really is that I saw it in IMAX 3D, right? So I think, because you haven't seen it in that format, have you?
I haven't.
No.
But I will say, if the opportunity arises, I will go and watch Avatar.
Well, you
IMAX
have
3D.
missed it, but
However, I will watch it as an experience.
Well, that's
not
the
as a
thing,
film.
isn't it? It's I think that's why I've changed my opinion, I guess. Yeah,
Are you conceding that Avatar is a bad film?
I think I probably am. Yeah. I love how we're doing free promo for the new Avatar movie that's out today by saying that the first one is awful.
And you know what? Go see the new one. It might actually be written by
hopefully
by some
by
good
the
people.
time he definitely didn't write this by himself, I don't think.
But the worry is that the film was commissioned for 5 more many years ago. So let's hope the scripts weren't pre-written.
Actually, he said if The Way of Water flops, he's just going to make one more and wrap it up in one film, so it's a trilogy instead. So
Well, we can only hope.
You're not going to see it out of spite anyway.
But I've won! I've won an episode. I've won the episode, which means it's 4-3 to me, which means
Yeah, I can't win, yes.
no, you can either
I
draw.
can at least draw.
You can draw. Christmas episode. The Christmas episode is the one for you to try and save
Try
yourself.
and scrape by with my dignity. And,
You're either going to draw, and honestly, I'm not confident for
Really?
the next episode.
Ooh.
No, I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
that
not.
gives me hope at the very least.
Purely because I know it's a belief that a lot of people hold.
I don't know. I think it's similar to this week. I think it's definitely a split.
I think it is, but I think unfortunately, I'm not on for a winner. But we'll see. Can Josh scrape a draw, or can I trample him and win the entire series and get my name in lights? Either way, that is the end of this episode. We can confirm that Avatar is a terrible film, and you should never watch it again.
Oh, unless it's in 3D and IMAX, where it's a great experience.
However, if you want to follow us over on social media, let us know what you have to say about Avatar, and you can follow us over at...
On Twitter, it's @DisputePod, and Instagram is directorial_disputes. We also have a TikTok, which is...
You can follow us on TikTok at Dispute Pod. Come and see our clips and clips of Josh crying, maybe, and losing. I think that's the important bit.
Not necessarily. Not the series, anyway.
But for now, follow us over on social media. Let us know what you think. And until next week, we will see you again.
We shall see you again in our Christmas special, which will be coming out on, ideally, I think the 23rd of December. So a lovely
Exciting.
Christmas Eve episode.
Better get festive.
Yeah. Alrighty. We
We'll
shall
see you next week.
Then. Bye.
Bye.